gas station was just a dimly lit oasis in the sea of darkness on the highway at night. I pulled in, weary and needing fuel for the remainder of my journey. The pump's metallic clang echoed as I began to fill up my car. The night air was chilly, and the hum of the gas pump seemed to be the only sound for miles. As I stood there, my breath forming misty clouds in the cold air, I noticed a commotion a few pumps away. A man and a woman were arguing, their voices raised in anger. I strained to hear their words, but the distance and the sound of the pump drowned out their conversation. And then it happened, a swift, brutal motion. The man struck the woman, sending her tumbling to the ground. I could hardly believe my eyes. In a state of shock and fear, I watched as he grabbed her limp form and shoved her into the trunk of his car, slamming it shut with a resounding thud. Without thinking, my instincts kicked in, and I knew I couldn't stand by and let this horrific act go unchallenged. I left the gas pump and followed the man as he drove away, my heart pounding and my thoughts racing. The winding road took us deeper into the woods, and as the man's car pulled into a secluded cabin, a sinking feeling gnawed at my stomach. This place was far from civilization, and the cabin's isolation sent shivers down my spine. I knew I had to act, but fear paralyzed me momentarily. The man dragged the woman from the trunk into the cabin, her struggles feeble against his overpowering force. I knew I had to help her, but I was alone, unarmed, and unprepared for this terrifying situation. My mind raced as I weighed my options. Then, I noticed a toolbox sitting by the cabin's entrance, and it was my only chance. I crept over and silently grabbed a heavy wrench. It was a feeble weapon, but it was all I had. As I cautiously approached the cabin, I could hear the woman's muffled cries for help from inside. My heart ached for her, and the adrenaline coursed through my veins, overcoming my fear. I had to act fast. With trembling hands, I twisted the cabin's doorknob, and it creaked open slowly. I stepped inside, my heart hammering in my chest. The scene that greeted me was one of pure horror. The woman was bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. The man, his back turned to me, was rummaging through a cabinet. I raised the wrench, praying to strike him down before he realized I was there. I swung the wrench with all the strength I could muster, the metallic thud of impact reverberating in the cabin. The man crumpled to the floor unconscious. I rushed to the woman, freeing her from her restraints, and together we escaped from that house of horrors. The authorities arrived, and the man was taken into custody. The woman, her face etched with gratitude, hugged me tightly, tears of relief in her eyes. That night at the gas station, I had witnessed a nightmare, but I had also found the strength to become an unexpected hero. The darkness that threatened to engulf us was vanquished, and the gas station had become a place of salvation, a reminder that bravery can prevail even in the most terrifying circumstances. As the woman and I sat in the safety of the police car, she shared her terrifying ordeal. She had been the captive of a deranged ex-boyfriend who had abducted her, intent on harming her. The cabin in the woods had been his lair of horror. As the authorities investigated, we discovered he had kept a collection of disturbing items in the cabin, a shrine dedicated to his obsession with her. Photographs, notes, and chilling mementos painted a grim picture of his obsession. We also found evidence of other women falling victim to his madness. He had carefully cataloged their lives and had collected a horrifying array of trophies, a chilling testament to his reign of terror. The man was arrested and taken away, and the cabin was sealed off as a crime scene. The woman I had rescued thanked me again, tears in her eyes, for my intervention that had likely saved her life. As I drove away from the gas station that night, I was haunted by the darkness that had unfolded before my eyes. But I was also filled with a profound sense of relief that I had been able to help, that I had been the unexpected hero in a horrifying tale. The gas station had become a place of salvation, a reminder that sometimes the most ordinary of circumstances can lead to the most extraordinary acts of bravery. As I pulled into a gas station on a desolate stretch of highway, my plan was simple. Fill up the tank, grab a quick snack, and continue my long journey home. The night was still and silent, with only the soft rustling of leaves in the breeze. I was ready to return to the road and put this pit stop behind me. That's when I saw him, a man standing by the fuel pumps, his thumb extended in a classic hitchhiker's pose. He looked ordinary enough, wearing jeans and a worn-out jacket, a baseball cap pulled low over his eyes. The shadows obscured his face. I could only see a scruffy beard and dark, intense eyes. I considered my options, hesitating for a moment. Picking up a hitchhiker was something I had never done before, but the guy seemed harmless, just in need of a ride. I rolled down the window and asked, "Heading anywhere specific?" The man smiled and replied, "Just a few miles up the road, buddy. Any chance you could give me a lift?" I agreed, and he hopped into the passenger seat without another word. He seemed like any other traveler, polite and grateful for the ride, and we exchanged pleasantries. I tried to make small talk to ease the tension, asking about his journey and plans. We drove silently for a while, and as we continued down the dark, deserted highway, I reached to turn on the car's radio for some background noise. What I heard next sent a shiver, a news report blaring from the speakers. "The authorities are on high alert as a notorious serial killer has escaped from the nearby maximum security prison," the voice on the radio announced. The fugitive is described as a man in his 40s, with a scruffy beard and dark, intense eyes. He's considered armed and extremely dangerous. My heart pounded and I glanced at my passenger, who sat beside me, seemingly unfazed by the report. He turned to me, revealing a grin that sent me chills. I realized that the hitchhiker shared the same distinctive characteristics as the escaped serial killer. Before I could react, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a gleaming, menacing gun. He pointed it at me and uttered two bone-chilling words, "Drive now." The journey that had started so innocently had turned into a waking nightmare. I did as the hitchhiker commanded, my hands trembling on the wheel. I dared not make any sudden moves that might provoke him. As we drove deeper into the night, I couldn't shake the fear that he might kill me at any moment. The road seemed endless, and each passing mile increased my dread. The hitchhiker, his gun still pointed at me, spoke in a low, menacing tone, his eyes never leaving mine. "I've been on the run for a while now, but you're going to help me get away. I've got nothing to lose, but you've got everything to lose." I nodded, my mind racing for a way out of this nightmare. The darkness of the night enveloped us, and I couldn't see what lay ahead. My life hung in the balance, and I knew I had to find a way to escape the clutches of this escaped serial killer. As the miles stretched on, my mind raced, desperately seeking an opportunity to escape the clutches of the hitchhiker, who was still clutching the gun with a deadly grip. The night was pitch black, and the winding road offered little in the way of salvation. Then in the distance, I spotted the flickering glow of a neon sign. A motel was up ahead. The idea struck me like a lightning bolt. It was my only chance to escape this nightmare. I pointed toward the sign and stammered, "Hey, how about we stop there for a moment? I could use a bathroom break, and maybe we can grab something to eat." The hitchhiker hesitated for a moment, his guard momentarily lowered. He muttered a gruff agreement, and as we pulled into the motel's parking lot, I seized the opportunity. With a sudden burst of adrenaline, I slammed the brakes, flung the car door open, and lunged out. Startled, the hitchhiker fumbled with his gun, and I sprinted toward the motel's entrance. I could hear his footsteps behind me, but I reached the motel lobby just in time, slamming the door shut and locking it from the inside. Gasping for breath, I shouted for help. The motel's clerk, a middle-aged woman, rushed over and called the police as the hitchhiker pounded on the glass door, demanding to be let in. Panic enveloped me as I realized I had narrowly escaped a deadly encounter. Within minutes, the police arrived, and the hitchhiker was apprehended. It turned out that the motel clerk recognized the escaped serial killer's description from the news report and had taken action to protect me. As the authorities arrested the hitchhiker, I couldn't help but think about the thin line that separated life from death that night. I had narrowly escaped a terrifying fate, and the motel clerk's quick thinking had saved my life. One of those eerie midnight drives through the desolate highways left you alone with your thoughts, with only the distant hum of the engine and the shadows cast by the pale moonlight for company. The gas gauge was dangerously flirting with empty, and I grew increasingly anxious. I pulled into a dimly lit gas station, the only oasis of light in the surrounding darkness. As I filled up my tank, a man approached me. He was disheveled, with wild hair and ragged clothing, and his eyes were filled with desperation. He mumbled something about needing money for gas, his voice trembling. I tried to ignore him, thinking he was just another stranger at night, a mere inconvenience on my journey. My reluctance was a mix of weariness and mistrust, and I declined to offer assistance. With a muttered curse, the man retreated into the shadows, and I thought nothing more of him. I completed my transaction and hit the road again, leaving the gas station behind. The darkness outside seemed to have deepened, and the road stretched endlessly into the night. But as I drove, a feeling of unease crept over me. It was as if something was off. Something in the night felt sinister. I couldn't shake the sense that I was being watched, that someone was following me. The hairs on my neck stood on end and my heart raced. I couldn't see anyone behind me, but I felt their presence like a looming storm. The road stretched on, winding through the desolate countryside, and I became acutely aware of every creak and rustle in the car. The shadows on the road seemed to grow longer and more menacing, and the moon cast an eerie, pale glow that heightened my fear. That's when I saw it, a pair of headlights emerging from the darkness, a car that had been following me. It trailed my vehicle with an unsettling precision. Every turn I took, it copied. It was as if I had unwittingly picked up a hitchhiker from the gas station. Fear took hold as I realized the man from the gas station was now following me, his eyes fixed on me with a sinister determination. I couldn't understand his motives, connection to me, or why he pursued me with such relentless intent. Desperation set in as I sped down the empty highway, searching for a way to shake off this relentless stalker. But the pursuer seemed to know my every move, anticipating my actions and matching my pace. The nightmare continued, the relentless pursuit pushing me to madness. I had nowhere to turn and no one to call for help. The darkness of the night had become my prison, and the man behind the wheel of that shadowy car my tormentor. I had to outsmart him to escape his sinister game. With a surge of adrenaline, I took a sharp turn onto a narrow, winding road, a hidden path that led me deeper into the dense woods. It was a desperate gamble, a wild attempt to shake off my relentless pursuer. As I navigated the winding road, branches scraped against the sides of my car, and my heart raced with uncertainty. And then, in a stroke of luck, I saw a flicker of a distant light, a small, isolated cabin nestled deep in the forest. I had found my refuge. I parked the car behind the cabin, concealed from view, and turned off all the lights. I waited in silence, my breath held in anticipation. The pursuing vehicle roared past the cabin, its headlights piercing the darkness, and then continued down the winding road, disappearing into the night. Relief washed over me, but the terror of that night would stay with me forever. I couldn't fathom what had driven the man to pursue me with such malevolence. Still, I had narrowly escaped a nightmare lurking in the depths of the midnight hour. I remained in the cabin until dawn, haunted by the chilling encounter, and only when the sun's rays broke through the trees did I dare to emerge from my hiding place. The road stretched out before me, an empty expanse of uncertainty. I continued my journey, knowing the night had revealed a darkness I could never forget.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe and like button.